say
they suck.
I was way more interested in football for the sake of my entertainment.
I guess they should probably make way more money if they're going to take that risk then.
Yeah, just raise the minimum. Society's moving in the opposite direction.
Actually,
so my sensibilities become more and more obsolete.
What you're describing actually would become safer because people knowing they don't have the helmet and pads, they would actually play less aggressively.
All right, well,
lesser teams would.
We're gonna
Raiders though.
You know what we're gonna do then? We're gonna
get at least like 2 deaths on each team during the game. Like, oh, the punter was hit so hard by this other player that
the punter was hit so hard his head flew off.
That play, but it'd be real.
Yeah, have an actual head roll by.
Yeah, and maybe if you maybe there could be some way like, hey, you completed 20 passes in a row. Now someone on your team gets the axe. And they just give them a battle axe to go on the field with, and they're allowed to chop up the other team.
Dude, it sounds like we're combining football and the running man at this point.
I kind of like it.
I'm okay with it.
Dude,
I'm okay with it.
That's where sports need to go, man. We need the running. Like, look, the Running Man is a pretty terrible movie, but if we can take that, some good principles,
terribly awesome, maybe.
If we take some of the good principles from that film and combine it with modern football, we can have something that's truly beautiful.
All right, well. We're not talking about football today. What we're talking about is one of the greatest filmmakers of all time, Mr. Stanley Kubrick. So let's delve right into that topic.
So my favorite director of all time. I think we are all doing this.
Whoa, it's like
We've
a
all
demon.
chosen our favorite director.
Although mine is going to be a little... Well, I'm doing one on a director that is actually terrible. But whatever, we'll get to that later.
That's true.
Mine is going to be a little separate from your guys's because of some weird scheduling stuff. But whatever. We're doing a couple directors this week, and we're going to revisit the director topic a little bit later on.
Dude, don't you just want to pinch his little cheeks?
Stanley Kubrick is a terrifying child.
Yes.
Yeah. TJ said he looks like
he looks like a chubby little vampire.
Yeah.
He looks like Nosferatu Jr. or some shit.
So he was born July 26, 1928 in Manhattan, New York City. In looking up about his life, I found that he was notoriously tight-lipped, and so we can't really rely on a lot of direct sources. So rather than just try and talk about Stanley Kubrick's life, which was very shrouded in mystery, I thought we'd look at Stanley Kubrick's life through the lens of his movies.
Right.
And
because that's where he actually expressed himself.
Yeah, and that's where he spoke most loudly about the things that scared him and the things that he was interested in. And I think that if you're going to analyze this particular person, to not do it through the lens of his own films, I think would be doing a great discredit to him, who clearly valued his own privacy.
Right.
So knowing all of the particulars about Stanley Kubrick is not really what this is about. We do have some anecdotes from family members. He was considered intelligent in school despite his poor grades. He never found an academic pursuit that challenged him or engaged him in any way. And his father was kind of desperate to find something because Stanley was doing so poorly in school, but he could tell that he was such a bright kid to make him, for him to latch onto intellectually. And he sent his, in desperation, he sent Stanley all the way across the country to Pasadena, California to stay with his uncle in 1940, hoping that being away from home and being with his uncle,
his uncle's name, by the way, was Martin Perveler.
Yeah, I don't know
if you should send your kid to live with his uncle.
Uncle Perveler.
Yeah, Uncle Perveler would probably not be the dude I'd send my child to.
This is a really common thing with a lot of people who are considered like great in their field. They're great figures. Like academically, it's like it almost looks like they're really poor at what they do, but it's usually they're just very bored. It's like it doesn't capture their attention. It doesn't capture the great mind and whatever. It's like you take this one size fits all approach to education that we so roundly criticize, and look at like Stanley Kubrick and well, if you looked at him from that perspective, what I'm saying,
yeah,
he's a failure. He's like, he's just some kid that can't do shit.
If you take a look at another personality that I think is similar to his, what's his goddamn name?
I don't know.
I fucking hate it, dude. I hate having somebody's name. God damn it, Daniel Johnston.
Right.
Musical genius. Really understood, never did well in school despite being really incandescently brilliant and great at language. His parents did kind of the same thing to him when he was young, sent him to live with a relative, hoping that change of scenery and the shock of it would kind of wake him up. and found similar results. It didn't work. And so Stanley moved home to the Bronx to finish the last year of grammar school, having really learned nothing in Pasadena.
Right, and I mean, look, obviously this is a guy who his big passion in life is filmmaking, and what exposure is he getting to something like that going to school? Nothing.
Well, and not only that, but at this point in his life, he didn't even know that was his passion. He was aimless.
He hadn't discovered it.
Yeah, this kid Stanley, unlike a lot of other directors, doesn't have a past. But now it does say that he used to cut school to go see movies, so clearly he was aware of film.
Right. So he obviously had some love of film.
There's nothing to say that he was directly interested in making them himself until he started to do it. So his father finally found something that would become a lifelong passion of Stanley's, and it really had nothing to do with movies. It was chess.
Yes.
He introduced his son to chess. And Stanley immediately took to it like a duck to water and became really, really adept at playing it and was obsessed with it his whole life. And we'll talk about some instances where chess was useful to him and some of the motifs that he used in his film.
Cool.
A little later into his teen years, he similarly kept struggling.
I feel like you can see the chess mentality in his films, too. Like, there is that sort of... He's a very methodical man in terms of how he directed his films.
Very strategic.
Yeah, I mean, like, you usually don't think about filmmakers as necessarily employing a strategy, but you definitely feel that from Kubrick. Like, he's a very strategic thinker. He's a very logical thinker. And as you said, one of the reasons you didn't pull any interviews for him for this thing is because... there's no passion in the interviews. It's very flat.
I mean, there is passion. You can tell he cares about his movies and what he's talking about, but he is a very flat communicator. He hated doing interviews. One of the quotes that I found for him was, the stupidest thing a man can do is give an interview when he doesn't have a movie coming out.
Right.
He just thought the questions sucked. He hated doing it. He was not an in-front-of-the-camera personality. He was not one of these directors that wanted this big public persona and big public recognition, and he'd want to give important talks at places. He wanted to just be alone and make films.
Yeah,
with his family,
But you did say there was another passion he developed in his teenage years as well.
So his father proved adept at finding things that would occupy young Stanley's mind, and he got him a camera for his 13th birthday, and that proved to be probably the most profound thing that anybody ever did for him. He immediately took to it, became an avid photographer, started taking pictures. I think I've got a picture of him, TJ.
Taking some pictures?
Young Stanley Kubrick. This would have been, his later teen years, but with a small point-and-shoot camera, and it became his passion. He started sending pictures to Look magazine in New York and got some feature spreads and started making money on the side as a teenager doing photographer work.
Right, and at the age of 17, he became an apprentice photographer.
Yep.
So, I mean, this was really his, it was really the gift of that camera on his 13th birthday that ultimately ignited something within him that led him down the path that he took in life.
Well, he was famous for saying that if it can be imagined or conceived of in the mind, it can be filmed. And I think that that's really what he was passionate about. It was, he realized that camera was a whole different world inside of the real world. Right. That he could make those pictures say whatever he wanted. And that desire to take that medium and storytell with it would drive the rest of his entire life. He was on the staff at Look magazine. He started going to film screenings in between, jobs for Look. And in 1950, he shot a short documentary about the run-up to a boxing match. Was released by RKO, called The Day of the Fight. And it was released in 1951.
This is his first foray into filmmaking, right?
Yes, this was the first film that he ever released commercially.
And I believe we have a trailer for that.
We do.
So let's take...
We can watch a little bit of it.
We have the complete film, I think.
It's available on YouTube. So you can...
Let's just take a look at that. Photography, Stanley Kubrick. Produced and directed by Stanley Kubrick. All events depicted in this film are true.
This is the story of a fight.
So
This is already just like this is
what
not a
I'm saying.
documentary. This is a stage.
This is what I'm
picture.
saying. The first frame of film that Stanley Kubrick releases is this beautiful shot of a street in New York, and where he's made it look like a paper that somebody has discarded has blown up against the light post. To introduce a documentary about a welterweight fighter that nobody fucking remembers. I watched all of these documentary films. There are 3 of them. We're only going to take a look at this one because, you know, they're unremarkable in content, other than the fact that they are composed so beautifully like this. They're worth watching if you're into Stanley Kubrick, not for the storytelling or the subject matter, really. The cinematography is so beautiful and on point in these films.
Walter Cartier.
I mean, yeah, I've seen stuff produced in a time period before and it does not look or feel like it.
You have to take it into account,
Maybe this,
too.
maybe some of the B-roll shit that obviously they
Sure.
shot, but like, I mean, that's just the more interesting opening than you see for, I mean, a lot of documentaries.
You can tell that he had an eye.
And you
for
can
this.
really see it throughout his films. But yeah, I mean, even this early example is just like, I mean, for the time period, this is very well shot and produced. I mean,
This is 1951.
and you have to remember too, like this is pretty much I'm sure an assignment. It's kind of just like, okay, go cover this fight. It doesn't it doesn't even have to be like this. It could probably just be like a very generic thing. It would have been acceptable.
Right.
Well, he's obviously trying to show off.
I mean, he definitely at this point in his life was interested in being a
The
filmmaker.
toughest part of being a boxer. The weight. Walter is on the right of Vincent, his identical twin. He doesn't mind the
lover.
hard training, the 4 miles of road work every day, as much as the waiting. Walter knows that each bout is more important than the one before because he's rapidly climbing to the middleweight championship of the world, and he must keep winning. It's a long way until night. Walter, wearing the bow tie, is 24. He's a native of New York and a fighter as far back as he can remember. His father is away, and when he was a little boy, he lost his mother. Walter began to do exhibition boxing with his brother Vincent when they were 3 years old. During the war, they fought exhibitions
And,
in
you know, each one of these guys weren't just walking somewhere. And so Stanley has composed...
all of this. I mean, like this might be based on true events or whatever,
Right.
but this is all of
feels
these
like a
shots
film.
are clearly staged.
Yeah, and he's chosen these interesting backgrounds. His framing is just on point in every one of them. It's beautifully shot. And that's the reason why I would recommend anybody that's a fan of Stanley's to go and watch these early documentaries. They are all available in their totality on YouTube. Free.
Anything that Stanley Kubrick composed is composed as perfect as you can imagine.
Yes.
Throughout any of his films, and this is no exception.
He was a
And
perfectionist.
aside from this film, which is called once again Day of the Fight,
A Western documentary about a religious group out there.
No shit,
Like
he
I
was a
said, none of these
perfectionist,
documentaries
but
are
it
interesting
goes
in
without
content.
saying.
They're interesting in composition. A lot of the shots from Flying Padre, it's
So if
about
you're
racing
just,
cars.
If you're just a connoisseur of good cinematography, then this is these are good early examples.
I mean,
of-
having the benefit of hindsight, you can just totally see it too. It's like this is made like a film. Like a lot of documentaries have a feeling of like you're just following people around. This is like you said, this is more like this feels like you're watching a movie. If they had dubbed this with something else, like these 2 guys are off to fucking go plan their bank robbery or whatever, you'd buy it.
Right. He used these short documentary pieces to show off his cinematography. And with that backing him, and according to some sources, hustling chess games in Central Park, he was able to get enough money and influence together to make his first non-fiction film, which is Fear and Desire.
Let's take a gander at that. Lorber.
This is what defensive coaches ask of their defenders every single ball game. Get a hand on every throw and coverage. They want the deflections. They want the knockaways. Pick it yourself if you can, but at least knock it down and guarantee it's incomplete. And this will be down. Houston's offense already at the line, set to get going. Well, this game, it has had no shortage of offense. They've been able to put up a decent amount of points on this side, Charles. They just haven't been able to keep pace with the other offense.
so well prepared for that. Waiting.
Thousands of men turned black.
Racist.
Then they were dead. And they knew it. Cannot quite admit that it is I who created this slaughter.
The time is called.
It's
Looks
a
like
fish.
a member of the Titans in some discomfort out there.
So, I actually, in prep for this, went and finished all of the movies that I hadn't seen of Stanley Kubrick, and this was one of them.
Right.
I watched it night before last.
So what did you think of it overall?
I kind of feel the same way about this film as I felt about the documentaries that preceded it.
Right.
It has some actual really powerful moments, and you could see in the trailer his use of lighting was already exquisite and beautiful in there, and it's really worth watching for the sumptuousness of his cinematography. The story itself is interesting. It's an unnamed, so it's a conflict, but you never know between which nations. So it's a conflict between nations that are completely unnamed.
So it's kind of there's kind of a thing where he doesn't want you to take a side based on like jingoism or anything like that.
Right.
It's supposed to just kind of examine war from a sort of like
humanist,
neutral perspective, because you're not invited to take any side.
And that's really what it is. It's about a group of soldiers from an unnamed nation who crash land in their plane on the enemy side of the battle lines, basically, and have to try and quietly and covertly make their way back to friendly territory. On the way, they meet a woman, and the way that they treat her and the way that she becomes a commodity amongst them as they're pinned down by this enemy general that knows that they're in the area is kind of the examination of the film.
Yeah, it's more about human nature.
Right.
It's not about like the conflict. It's about what happens to people.
It's about the human side of those conflicts and what happens in these untold stories behind enemy lines when these people die and are forgotten and are never supposed to be there in the first place. It's an interesting film. Definitely not my favorite of his, but you could already see. And like I said, this is 1953. If you look at movies that are made in 1953, they don't look like this movie does.
No.
And there's a reason for that. He had an eye for staging and lighting that people didn't have at the time. It was new and it was fresh, and this built his reputation amongst filmmakers, this first film. His next two films are Killer's Kiss and The Killing. They were released in 1955 and 56, respectively. I watched both of these films as well, and I feel like I like them both. By the Day of the Fight, which is that first documentary that he made, because Killer's Kiss follows like a middling welterweight boxer trying to box his way up the ranks, but he's not really genuinely good enough, and then he falls in love with a woman who happens to be a mobster's woman, and he's horribly abusive towards her, and this boxer isn't, and he falls in love and has to escape the town because this mobster is trying to have him killed. So it's like a underworld romance kind of film.
Here he is shooting the film.
Yep.
And you can see that he is manning the camera himself.
And you can see what he's focused in on there as well, and that he is clearly enjoying the shot. I mean, this is there's a lot of this kind of, and you saw this a lot in the 1950s, this overt, like, look at my breasts kind of sexuality.
Yeah.
Always turtleneck sexuality, but clearly the breasts are there and very prominent.
Right.
So there's a lot of that.
There's always been a sensuousness to a lot of his movies.
The acting is not fantastic in this film. That's another thing that was kind of, I think, lacking back in the day, especially for a small-time director. He didn't have access to the talent, and you could tell that, it just wasn't there.
Let's take a little gander at the trailer for that.
Down to the final 2 minutes.
We need to watch the whole thing.
So it's our home team here.
I like this opening shot of endless blackness.
Blackness, yes.
These
These are like old theatrical trailers, so.
Okay. So there's supposed to be pictures
Yes,
of this?
there will be.
Okay.
A knockout punch. A picture as brazen as the naked bulbs of Broadway.
Naked
and as hard
bulbs.
as the New York streets where it was shot.
Can't you get it, Vinny? To me, you're just an old man.
All right, I see what you made.
Smell bad.
Yeah.
I could kill you right here and now.
Oh, I don't think you will.
Okay, I kind of like that guy.
He's actually one of the holdout good actors in this film, and he's a central character as well.
Oh, that's good.
I don't remember what his name is,
He was
but
lost as
he's
soon
good.
as he
Pretty much
looked
everybody
there.
else isn't.
Well, this is not. I mean, obviously, every film Kubrick made is important, but this one probably not too much.
I mean, like I said, I don't regret the time that I spent watching it.
Yeah.
But
I've muted the audio for the audience, by the way,
Sure.
so they can.
I mean, I think it's essential, and this kind of shows the progression as a filmmaker. It's like I think there's always an element in Stanley Kubrick of wanting that kind of mainstream appeal. I think in a sense, like he definitely wanted his films to be seen by a larger audience.
he was trying to get cachet, and he was making films that were popular at the time, because he realized, in order to get the type of freedom to make the type of films,
You have to make commercials,
right?
Successful films.
And that's
as well.
what these first films are. This is from the set, I believe, of The Killing.
Yes, it is.
Which is just kind of it's a heist film, basically. A heist and investigation film, which was probably very popular at this time.
So at this point, he's making popular genre films to try to get that name recognition.
To make the films he truly wants to make.
We don't know what his thought process was at
Right,
this
you
time.
can't. There's no. I mean, the thing about Kubrick is that there's no real window into his psyche, where his mind is at. You can only speculate.
Right. I mean, and he's given some, like I said, he's given some interviews. I watched a great number of them in prep for this, and he didn't like revealing his process. He didn't like talking about his personal life and his personal feelings about things. He liked talking about filmmaking and how he made the movie and the actors that were in the movie. And that doesn't reveal a whole lot about his background process. So at this time, I would like to think that he was just showcasing his cinematography, showcasing his eye, and hoping that that would be enough to elevate him to a greater position.
And apparently, The Killing is the film that in 1956 that brought him to the attention of Hollywood.
Yes.
That really, because let's just take a look at it. This is The Killing. Oops. Whoa. All right.
Give or take a few thousand. I figure the loot on this deal at $2 million. There should be that much in the track offices. Great big dollar sign there where most women have a heart. So play it smart. Stay in character and you'll have money. Plenty of it. George will have it. He'll blow it all on you.
Johnny, I'm no good for anybody else. I'm not pretty.
Yeah, it feels like Stanley Kubrick knew that he had to get people's attention. Like you really have to make a name for yourself in the world. And it seems like that's what he was doing with this. I don't think that, in my estimation, there was a lack of I mean, I think he obviously knew it was a very commercial project. I don't think he was really hesitant to move away from just commercial projects. But I think it was also the recognition is that how do you get from that position to make the other films that he wants to make and the other stories that he's interested in and wants to tell.
I can tell you, just listen to the dialogue from this trailer, that's pretty standard dialogue for the era. It's not standout. It's not like, oh my God, wow.
There are some great moments, some great lines, but it is very stilted like a lot of 1950s movie dialogue is. He was very much making genre films. That's how I feel about these. I feel like they're slightly better shot genre films from that period of time. Heist movies, the Maltese Falcon, that type of feel.
Yeah, the main standout is the cinematography. I agree with you.
He caught the eye of this gentleman, Kirk Douglas, who at this time was the biggest movie star in the world. And Kirk Douglas got him the job basically directing Paths of Glory. So it was his work on The Killing and Killer's Kiss that got the eye of Kirk Douglas. He wanted to work with him. He got him the job. For this movie, Paths to Glory is obviously a vehicle for Kirk Douglas, if you've ever seen it. He's absolutely the central focus of the film.
But is it as good as, what was that movie we watched, Saturn 3 or some shit?
It's a smidge better. This is a great movie. This is, I feel, Stanley Kubrick's first truly great film. It is a controversial movie, which would be a hallmark of his career going forward. due to its anti-war. It was very critical of the military.
Right.
It's a movie about...
Which is a recurring motif in Kubrick's films.
Right. It's a World War I film about the French military and their fight against the Germans. And Lieutenant Dax, played by the dashing Kirk Douglas here, is the leader of a large platoon of men who are engaged in trench warfare, which I guess victory was sometimes measured in inches. If you could move your trench an inch, it was a good thing. And he gets this outlandish order. His men are all tired from the constant fighting. He gets this outlandish order from a general saying, I want you to take that hill. His men valiantly try to do it, but are cut to pieces by the enemy guns, and they start to retreat. The general that ordered the attack in the first place orders the artillery to fire on his own men as retribution. And that's really what this film is about. That general wants to blame his men for cowardice and forces him to pick 3 men, or I think it's 4 men, that are to be executed for cowardice. And he represents them. So it's like a courtroom drama, basically. Controversial, like I said at the time, especially in military circles, for its naked criticism of the military.
Well, that sounds awesome. Let's take a look at the trailer for that.
Revealing my true feelings. I apologize, sir, for not telling you sooner that you're a degenerate, sadistic old man. And you can go to hell before I apologize to you now or ever again.
That was cool.
Since the publication of the book 25 years ago, no one dared to make this movie. It was too shocking, too frank. Casualties you anticipate, sir? Say 5% killed by our own barrage. Very generous allowance. 10% more against the no man's land, and 20% more against the wire. That means 65%. We'll talk the job over. Let's say another 25% in actually taking the anthill. They're still left with a force more than adequate to hold it. Say more than half my men will be killed. Aside from the inescapable fact that a good many of your men never left the trenches, is the question of the troops' morale. Don't forget that. The troops' morale, certainly. These executions will be a credit tonic to the entire division. There are few things more fundamentally encouraging and stimulating than seeing someone else die. Where in heaven's name are they? Where are they? Eagle plus 1 and still in the trenches. They're not advancing. Typical cowards. They're not advancing. The barrage is getting away from them. They're still in the trenches. Captain Nichols. Yes, sir. Order 75 to commence plowing our own position.
It's just so rare to see a fucking film, even today, that doesn't paint the military as anything but this force of good defending. And then you take this very realistic look where it's like, it just shows you these soldiers are just numbers. Oh, the 25% of the soldiers will die, and it's just very callous, and it's just telling of what the reality of war is, which is just a bunch of old men making calculations about how they can keep enough of their force to basically win the war at the end of it.
Yeah, it's during the filming of this movie that Stanley found a use for chess. That French general that he calls a sadist and a degenerate at the beginning, played by a French actor named Philippe Mongieu, who was notoriously fickle and didn't like Stanley's style of making actors do multiple retakes. He would often ask actors to do 20 or 30 retakes of a shot with no feedback and no breaks in between. And Philippe Mongieu had enough one day and went off on Stanley, cussing him out and freaking out. And I will not stand for this. I will not do this. Stanley let him rant and rave, and then right at the end of it, just took him by his hand and pulled him over to a chessboard that he had set up on the set and played a round of chess against him, beat his ass at it. And I guess at the end of that, Philippe was ready to work again.
Right.
It sapped all that passion out of him and all that angst, and it put it in the form of a tactile game.
Yeah, and also it just says to people, I'm your intellectual superior. You're coming at me with this emotional argument, but let's see you actually put it into practice and actually defeat me intellectually.
Yes.
And they can't do it.
Right.
So it's disarming.
It's disarming, and it provides a channel for all that negative emotion.
Right.
It puts it into a game. It makes a game of it.
And it gives them a chance, although it sounds like based on his chess skills, they didn't really have much of a chance. But
no, they didn't.
It gives them a chance to feel like I'm going to fucking prevail over this son of a bitch.
Right.
I mean,
they can't do it.
I definitely agree with you. I mean, based on other films we've seen, just look at the way this battlefield is set up. I mean, everything about this has a
Plus the dialogue in the film. I mean, it doesn't sound like your typical 1957 fucking movie.
This is the first film where he had a roster of really wonderful actors to work with, and everybody in this movie is standout good.
There's good suspension of disbelief. I mean, the set pieces. I mean, this is a movie that I can see why you highly recommend, Paul.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely great. Like I said, all of it, the young men that are condemned from his platoon, that have to wait for their sentencing and trial and execution. They are all standout great in this film as well. It's just a great movie. It was during the filming of this movie that he met his second wife. His first wife was a high school sweetheart, and that marriage did not survive the filming of his first movie, Fear and Desire. His second wife, and well, actually no, sorry, this would be his third wife. Okay. I didn't pull all the wives that he took because, like I said, he was notoriously tight-lipped about his personal life. But he met this young lady here. You want to put her up on screen for the folks?
Sure.
Let's see, let me get her. So she's a very small part in this film. At the very end, and I think it bears mentioning, it's a really powerful scene. She's brought out, she's a German, and she's brought out in front of all of these raucous French soldiers who are in a tavern after a long battle and drinking. And it's a very heavy atmosphere. She's weeping, she's crying, and the implication is that they're going to make her strip, or make her do something horrible, or rape her, or throw things at her, and jeering because she's German. And they ask her to sing a song, and you think it's going to be to mock, but she starts singing, and everybody goes quiet. All of these raucous soldiers go silent, and they listen to her for a little while, and then one by one they all start singing with her. It's a statement of common humanity. Stanley fell in love with this young German actress here, Christine Harlan, and he married her in 1958. So
let's see, they stayed with her for a long time.
Yes,
40 years it says, till his death.
Yep. So she was.
That was it. So she was really the one for him.
And basically, she became an integral part of his filmmaking too. She would film a lot of behind-the-scenes things. His daughter actually would do that as well. So his family members were all involved in his process and probably had a whole lot more to say about the man. But once again, I think they all respect his privacy and don't
respect the fact that he wasn't upfront with that. So they're not going to go and be like, let's write a tell-all or some shit.
But this was the first taste that Stanley got of censorship, and he hated it. He was really rankled by how censored this first film was, or this film in particular was. In France, both active and retired personnel from the French military vehemently criticized the film and its portrayal of the French army after it was released in Belgium. The French government placed enormous pressure on the United Artists, the European arm of their distribution, not to release the film in France. The film eventually was shown in France in 1975 when social attitudes had changed.
So a long time after.
Especially how weak they're intellectually. It's like Stanley Kubrick yet again intellectually defeated the people by the very fact that all these times that we talk about the military, it's like, oh, we're defending your freedom. But then someone else throws their hat in their opinion about, like, this is my opinion about war and what happened, and then it's like, no, we need to censor you. It's like, so you guys can have your genuistic shit till the end of time, big parades. I mean, that's pervasive throughout those cultures. But then someone else has a different idea, and that's immediately shut down. No, you're not allowed to have that idea or have that opinion.
Yeah, and that wasn't the only censorship it incurred either. It says here in Germany, the film was withdrawn from the Berlin Film Festival to avoid straining relations with France.
Oh, okay.
It was censored in Spain.
It wasn't shown until 11 years after Franco's death in Spain.
Yeah, Francisco Franco, who was, I guess, the head of the right-wing government at the time. In Switzerland, the film was censored at request of the Swiss Army until 1970. At American bases in Europe, the American military banned it from being shown. So this film was so controversial that, like, you practically couldn't show it in a huge swath of Europe at the time because it was just too triggering for the fucking snowflakes of the time.
Yep. So Stanley was really rankled by this critique and censorship of his work. But his collaboration with Kirk Douglas would prove to be a fruitful one, as Kirk Douglas found himself on the set of a very beleaguered production of Spartacus.
Right.
Spartacus's first director, I don't know if I took down his name, honestly. Yeah, David Lean, who directed 1957's The Bridge Over the River Kwai, which is actually a pretty good film.
Good film, yeah.
He turned down an offer to direct. Laurence Olivier was asked but declined. Douglas believed that the original director, Anthony Mann, was scared of the large scope of the film, and he also didn't like how close he was to the British actors in the film, so he fired him. This shows you how much power Douglas had and actors had at this time in Hollywood, where they could literally... I mean, I guess there's probably a few actors that could get a director fired nowadays.
But not a lot. You have to be at the tippy top of the game.
But Kirk Douglas was absolutely in control. And it is kind of... I don't know if this is a rumor or if this is true, but the rumor is that Kirk Douglas, after working with Stanley on Paths to Glory, felt that Stanley would be a malleable director.
Right.
That would acquiesce to his every little whim as an actor and allow him to kind of make the movie.
I'm going to guess
almost like Kirk Douglas directs movies.
I'm assuming that did not work out for Kirk.
He was hoping that Kubrick would be daunted, like the previous director Mann was, by the scope, and he would, bow down. He was sorely mistaken.
No, Kubrick just rose to the occasion. It's because you got to believe that a film of this scale was what Kubrick was really waiting for.
I mean, this was his first giant budget movie. I mean, and this at the time was the biggest budget that had ever been thrown at a film in the history of films.
Right.
And Stanley Kubrick has all of that money. Of course, he's going to do it his way.
If you've seen this film, it's evident what you can see at the time, because I think it was made in 1960.
Yes, 1960.
Yeah, 1960, and it's the scale of this film is huge.
There's a great anecdote that comes from this film. The cinematographer on this film, Russell Meddy, complained to producers that Kubrick was taking over his job. And Kubrick's response was to pull him aside and tell him to just sit there and do nothing. Meddy complied and ironically was awarded the Academy Award for cinematography.
I love it.
So he basically let Stanley Kubrick do what Stanley Kubrick always wanted to do, which was have total creative control over every aspect of the visuals of the piece, every aspect of the narrative. And some people were rankled by that, but he just steamrolled over them and made his picture.
Well, let's take a look at the trailer for Spartacus, shall we?
Spartacus, a motion picture unequaled in the entire history of filmmaking, unlikely ever to be surpassed. In the tenderness and beauty of its love story, nothing was spared to make Spartacus the superb achievement it is. Neither time, nor money, nor talent. For in Spartacus, you will see the finest cast ever assembled, relive history's most exciting and inspiring drama. Starring Kirk Douglas as Spartacus, slave, gladiator, invincible fighter. Laurence Olivier as Crassus, symbol of Rome's majesty and might.
I'm not after glory. I'm after Spartacus.
Gene Simmons as the slave Erinia, whose body was bought and sold, but whose love enveloped Spartacus with a radiance few men have known. Charles Lawton as Gracchus, the leader of the Roman Senate. Peter Ustinov as Batiatus, shrewd and devious dealer in human flesh. John Gavin as Julius Caesar, ambitious staff officer. And Tony Curtis as Antoninus, who loved Spartacus like a brother. In the powerful story of the gladiator rebel who sprang from slavery to challenge the awesome might of imperial Rome.
The symbol of the Senate. All the power of Rome.
Damn. I God for slaves. I pray.
What do you pray for?
I pray for a son who'll be born free.
$70 millimeter.
70 millimeter.
I mean, the scope and scale of this film is just crazy. I mean, and even brag about it. That's not something a studio would do now. They wouldn't be like Avengers, like a $400 million budget.
We spent so much fucking money on this.
Guys,
we wouldn't even
spent
believe.
a lot.
We got all these actors. We got all this shit together.
So it was during the filming of this movie that Stanley Kubrick became fed up with the bullshit of working in Hollywood. Here's just some of the things that he had to contend with on the set. Kirk Douglas stopped production entirely on the film for 10 days when he came down with the flu. Tony Curtis, Antoninus, had to be worked around for 5 weeks after he split his Achilles tendon while he was playing tennis with Douglas at Douglas's home during the shooting. Art director Eric Orbram had a fatal heart attack during production. He would later win a posthumous Oscar for the best art direction in the movie, so I guess that's, he can't control over that.
Yeah,
But
he died.
there were just tons of stories about him having to deal with the temperamental actors, him bitching about the budget and having to make concessions on the budget here and there and everywhere, and he just, I guess, became fed up. He was supposed to direct another movie. He was supposed to direct Marlon Brando in One-Eyed Jacks, but negotiations broke down, and I think that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, honestly. He decided he was done and moved to the United Kingdom, where he lived for the rest of his life and made all the rest of it. Every movie from here on out was made in the UK. So he just kind of walked away from the Hollywood establishment and decided at this point that Spartacus had made him a big enough name that he could go out on his own and make his own films. His first film in the UK was Lolita in 1962. I guess we could watch the opening to that, or the trailer for that if you want.
Sure thing.
Lolita.
How did they ever make a movie of Lolita?
How did they ever make
Movie of
So Stanley Kubrick just loves the television.
The common response, by the way, to that tagline of how did they ever make a movie of Lolita was they didn't.
Yeah, and
this movie, unfortunately, plays it very safe with the material, which is understandable. It's obviously controversial, but why adapt it then?
I think Stanley Kubrick wanted to develop this picture of himself as somebody who covered the topics that other people wouldn't. And earlier in his career especially, he had to acquiesce to censorship boards, and you really don't catch Stanley saying bad things about his own work. He's a great advocate for his own work. And Lolita was one of the only films that I could find Stanley quoted as saying something kind of negative about it, so I thought I'd read that. His one regret in filming Lolita, talking about the lead actress here, she was actually just the right age. Lolita was 12 and a half in the book, Sue Leon was 13. I think some people had a mental picture of a 9-year-old. I would fault myself in one area of the film, however, because all of the pressure over production code and the Catholic Legion of Decency at the time, I believe I didn't sufficiently dramatize the erotic aspect of Humbert's relationship with Lolita. And because his sexual obsession was only barely hinted at, many people guessed too quickly that Humbert was in love with Lolita, whereas in the novel this comes as a discovery at the end, when she's no longer a nymphette, but a dowdy, pregnant suburban housewife. And it's this encounter and his sudden realization of his love that is one of the most poignant elements of that story. If I could do the film over again, I would have stressed the erotic component of their relationship with the same weight Nabokov did. But that's the only major area where I feel the film is susceptible to valid criticism.
Yeah, well,
you'll see, even in shitting on his own work.
He's like, but it's still a masterpiece, and I'm still great.
Outside of the fact that I had to compromise my vision to satiate a bunch of stupid censors, it was perfect.
For the sake of this film being able to even be shown today, it's probably a good thing that he played it safe in that regard.
Well, his only regret is that he had to, like you said, he had to compromise his vision. So it's really not even he's being super critical of the film. It's saying that, look, my vision was compromised. The reason I couldn't make this film was because of other people.
Because but eroticizing a 13-year-old, which this trailer clearly does,
yes,
is more controversial now than it even was in 1962.
But you see the strategy there that Kubrick employed. I mean, he definitely realized, like, look, if I'm making edgier content, I need to sell it, and that's about as edgy as you can get, is what he's doing.
Right, and he's just basically like, how do I even get away with this?
Right,
you got to come see it.
So I mean, people can criticize that, but those are the decisions people had to make. They even push the boundaries at all.
You see, Paths of Glory was a similar project, and they sold it a similar way in the trailer. How did they make a movie of this?
Yeah, like how is it even possible?
You can bet your ass that Stanley Kubrick was behind that hype.
What's the way of addressing that?
Courted that kind of
controversy
and vision of himself as a filmmaker that was willing to go where others dared not tread. Even though these movies all did well and are well remembered, obviously, Spartacus once again being one of the biggest movies ever made at that time. Lolita, of course, causing another firestorm of controversy. It wasn't until his next film that he achieved legendary status as a director and really the freedom to do whatever he wanted. And that next film, of course, was Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying.
Attack!
Russia. Oh. Base.
10 females to each male.
We've got a machine.
Fluids.
That's pretty crazy.
The Doomsday Machine. Blast off! Where's my shorts?
On the hotline.
Dr. Strangelove.
Or How I Learned to Stop Worrying. And
Love, the bomb. Amusing.
I first became aware of it, Mandrake, during the physical act of love.
So, this movie was a gigantic risk. It was released in 1964 when nuclear bombs were not exactly a comedic thing.
Right.
And it wasn't even written originally as a comedy.
Unlike now where they're hilarious.
Yeah. He originally conceived the movie as a drama, but according to him, found the ideas that he came up with so ridiculous and comical that he just had to make it a comedy film. And that proved to be the brilliant move in his career.
I don't think he ever made any other movies that could be considered comedies.
No. I mean,
I guess Lolita had some comedy.
Lolita is kind of comedic. It could be argued as a kind of romantic comedy. This film, obviously, and I've heard Clockwork Orange described as a dark comedy.
That's true. There is some comedic elements there.
So he definitely used it as a device, but in this, it was the perfect balm for the sore asses of people that were looking for something to be offended by. People loved the inversion of this horrible thing that they'd all been so worried about, and have it turned into just a bunch of lunkheads.
It's kind of cathartic, too, after being pumped so full of fear, to just see it as something that's actually ridiculous.
It was a huge move for his career. Absolutely catapulted him and made him a director, like we mentioned earlier, that people would go and see just because it was him that made the film.
Right. So this is kind of when he started to become a star.
Just kind of a dark, surreal fucking take on just kind of that almost 1950s, 60s culture of just fear about the annihilation of humanity at any moment.
And cover.
It's the end of civilization. And it's just kind of interesting. And like, even something that's kind of influenced some of those other Mel Brooks movies, where it's kind of like, I don't know. It has that self-awareness. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can definitely see sort of a Mel Brooks kind of tone in that.
It's it's incredibly self-aware. It's incredibly cool to watch. It's funny to this day. It's incisive in its commentary on military operations and how it's all just like a monkey fucking a coconut, basically.
Right. And like I said, a lot of military critiques in Kubrick's
Oh
work.
yeah.
And this kind of cut the cords for him. And his passion project that he released next in 1968 was
one of the most influential films of all time.
Yep, his collaboration with sci-fi author Arthur C. Clarke on 2001: A Space Odyssey. We could do a whole show on this movie.
Yeah.
It is densely packed with things that changed the way that movies are made. I mean, sci-fi films were never the same after this.
No.
And movies were never the same after this.
I mean, like, you couldn't have Star Wars without 2001: A Space Odyssey.
And it's really this movie, in my opinion, where Stanley Kubrick's ultimate brilliance first shines at its brightest. I don't think it's the only time in his career that it did that, but I really think that here he was allowed total creative freedom. He was allowed to bring in all of the best special effects artists of the day and push the medium to something that looked amazing still. He was able to work with NASA to design these futuristic spacesuits based on what they perceived they were going to have, at the time. He pushed every boundary in filmmaking with this film.
Yes.
Visually, artistically, cinematographically.
The first time I saw this movie, I watched it all the way through and I was kind of like, huh? But in addition to that, I was like, when was this movie made? And I saw this movie was made in 1969. I'm like, what? I'm
It's
like,
mind-blowing.
68.
Or 68, 1968. Like, I found that, I'm like, are you fucking... Like, I thought this movie was made like 10 years ago at this point.
Yeah,
I didn't really think about Stanley Kubrick back. I was like 12 or 13 years old. I was like, what?
The special effects for this film, for being from 1968, hold up tremendously well to this day, especially if you can catch it in theaters, which me and Scotty were lucky enough to do. We saw I believe in a 70 millimeter as well.
Yeah, 70 millimeter at the
We
Aero
saw a
Theater.
70 millimeter
bet that was
version
beautiful.
of 2001: A Space Odyssey at the Aero Theater. In
They always try
Santa
to talk about
Monica.
the movie for a minute for these big movies, and they always say, like, this is one of the movies that sells, like, this and Lawrence of Arabia sell out so quick within 70 millimeter.
Both
anywhere.
like huge genre-defining pictures.
And this is a crazy movie. Let's take a look at the trailer for it.
Yeah, one of my favorite all-time movies.
Welcome to voice print identification. When you see the red light go on, would you please state in the following order your destination, your nationality, and your full name?
Boone, American, Floyd, Haywood R.
Thank you. You are cleared through voice print identification.
Thank you.
Frankly, we have had some very reliable intelligence reports that quite a serious epidemic has broken out into chaos.
No, there have been some conflicting views held by some of you regarding the need for complete security.
It hasn't been covered up by natural erosion or other forces. It seems to have been deliberately buried.
4 million-year-old black monolith that remains completely inert, except for a single, very powerful radio emission. 3 weeks ago, the American spacecraft Discovery 1 left a half-billion-mile voyage to Jupiter.
The sixth member of the Discovery crew was the HAL 9000 computer.
Everything is going extremely well.
One gets the sense that he is capable of emotional responses. Well, how identified
No 9000 computer has ever made a mistake or distorted information.
But Dave, I can't put my finger on it, but I said something strange.
Just a moment. Just a moment.
You know what happened?
I'm sorry, Dave. I don't have enough information.
Made radio contact with you.
The radio is still dead.
Hello, Hal, do you read me? Hello, Hal, do you read me? Do you read me, Hal? Do you read me, Hal?
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
I don't know what you're talking about, Hal.
This conversation can serve no purpose anymore.
In Cinerama.
I feel stupid even pointing it out, but we didn't quite get that level of technology in 2001.
No, we didn't.
Unfortunately, think that we
fell short of Kubrick's
we kind of
vision.
overestimated where we'd be by that point. Because here it is, 2019, 18 years after this movie was supposed to take place, and still don't even really seem close to that. So, goddamn. How unfortunate is that?
That's a shame, but it certainly like defined the futurist vision of film. So many fucking sci-fi movies just acquiesced to looking exactly like.
I mean,
this
so
movie.
much of the sci-fi films that were produced before this were just like cheeseball films of like robots going like danger, danger. You know,
I mean, it's really the first film that it kind of gives you like look how far humanity's come. I mean, it gives you an overarching vision of like maybe there is an external force in the universe that's controlling that. I mean, it has some interesting ideas. There's a lot of the imagery in the movie is superb. I mean, especially considering it was made in 1968. The last 20 minutes of that film
are a total mindfuck.
A total mindfuck, especially if you're high. But I like the terror of the chip too. I like the fact that you have this almost benevolent dictator. Where it's like, this is too important for you humans to fuck this up. Sorry.
Yep. Those last 20 minutes where the aliens are encountered, he consulted heavily with Carl Sagan on that. who explained to him that any extraterrestrial that would have evolved independent of us would probably look nothing like us, and so that anything he would come up with would have an element of falseness to it. And so he suggested that he vaguely represent the aliens rather than actually showing them. One of the more controversial parts of the movie, the last 20 minutes. A lot of people claim they can't get into the movie because of that.
Arthur C. Clarke famously was once held up at the airport by someone who's like, I'm only going to clear you through security if you explain to me the ending of this movie, because I don't get it, basically.
Right.
So that's a pretty cool little anecdote. But, despite Kubrick being thought of as a control freak, obviously a very successful collaborator in films like this, not afraid to defer to the expertise of others, not afraid to work with another creative mind like Arthur C. Clarke.
When his vision would be compromised by a lack of knowledge on his part, he was never afraid to hire the best people in the field to fill in that fucking position. He hired several former NASA employees to work on this film. He was obsessed with it being as photorealistic as possible. He wanted it to be indistinguishable from reality. And he made sure that he got as close to that as a filmmaker can, which is why this movie is still puzzled over and looked at and talked about to this day, and still a huge influence on the genre, both on the genre and just on filmmaking in general.
I mean, even in other respects of the cultural impact they have, that people think about this as a possibility of a future, like people talking to each other on screens. That's not really a common idea, especially at that time period. It's like, I'm going to have a conversation with someone that I'm not actually, that we're going to be face to face in a sense, but not truly. I mean, there was some ideas. I mean, at the time, America was thinking about space travel. Like, this seemed like, at that time, we're on the cusp of this being a reality. In 2001, this could, in some potential universe, be the future.
He was super secretive about the filming of this movie. He had all the props destroyed after he was done with them to make sure that nobody else ever was able to use them or see how they were made. I found a really weird story that I followed up on that I couldn't find any more information about than what I'm going to give you right here. Okay? There were 19 minutes of this film that were cut. And everybody thought that, along with the props and all the production footage and stuff from the film, Stanley destroyed it. But in 2010, the complete extra 19 minutes that was thought lost was preserved in a salt mine in Kansas. Special effects supervisor Trumbull hopes to feature never-before-seen images from the once lost footage in an upcoming behind-the-scenes photo book. That's all I could find about this. So somebody found the 19 missing minutes of 2001: A Space Odyssey in a salt mine in Kansas.
Dude, I hope they fucking release it at some point. What a strange...
I don't know if that's true, but...
If it is...
There you go.
World,
I think this film, probably better than any other kind of showcases that quote you were talking about earlier from Stanley Kubrick of, if you can imagine it, you can film it.
Right. If it can be seen or imagined, it can be filmed. That's absolutely true. And I think
you see, watching that trailer, you don't look at the special effects and be like, oh, wow, terrible 1968 special effects. It's like, that holds up. Holds up better than a lot of shit from, 1998, you know?
You look at Anaconda, dude. Does that hold up? Fuck no. This movie does.
This movie was not as controversial as his previous entries, but it did court some controversy that I read about from religious people who thought its portrayal of an ultimately godless universe, or a universe overseen by powerful alien beings where time is meaningless.
Well, boo fucking who.
But there was very little. This is a universally acclaimed and loved film.
Yeah.
And
you're pretty much looking for something to be pissed about.
I think that after this movie, after getting all of this love, it's probably my favorite Kubrick film. I always vacillate between this and Full Metal Jacket. But it's hard to make an argument against this movie, in my eyes.
Yeah.
It is
super controversial, super brutal, super unflinching.
It's a pain in the Gulliver, TJ.
Just a totally uncompromising film vision. And really, really, honestly faithful to the Anthony Burgess novel it's based on, which I happened to read before I ever saw this film.
Oh, really?
So I went into this movie with that book in my mind and was just, I remember being blown away.
Probably thinking, there's no way this movie is going to...
I thought, how did they ever? They must have dumbed it down.
How did they ever make a movie of Clockwork Orange?
Right. So it's another one of those. And actually, I think that Kubrick was not initially interested in doing A Clockwork Orange. He allegedly didn't like the book the first time he read it.
He's like,
he didn't really get the language that Burgess uses.
It's tough.
It really is.
It's a hard book. I have a copy sitting there on my shelf. I've tried a couple times, and it's just like, I can't understand what the fuck you're saying.
You have the Spark Notes version, dude.
Right.
Yeah, I do.
Apparently, upon later consideration, though, he started to see Alex DeLarge as a Richard III style anti-hero and became very interested in making the film again. He chose to fast motion blur a sex scene in the film between Alex and two women. The scene ended up contributing to the film's eventual X rating, not for explicit content, but because the censors feared the technique would be copied by actual pornographers who could speed up their films as a loophole to get their films passed by the ratings board.
Dude, I remember that's one of the scenes I remember in the film, because it's just it's kind of jarring, it's out of nowhere, but it's really fun. It's a really fun way to handle this guy hooking up with these two chicks.
Do you know how long that scene was in actual time?
I have no idea.
28 minutes of unbroken fucking. How do you like that?
But another thing we haven't really talked enough about is the use of classical music in Kubrick films. And I believe he does it even he does a lot in this movie. But there's always an element of music in his films, like the Singing in the Rain scene in this film.
Well, that was actually improvised by Malcolm
was it?
McDowell. Yes, that was.
But Kubrick chose to leave that take, obviously, in the film.
If there's a hero of this film in the mind of Kubrick, it's Malcolm McDowell. He absolutely insisted that he played the role, was not interested in even looking at other people, and was a huge confidant of Malcolm McDowell's, allowed him wide range in creating the character of Alex DeLarge. Yes, that entire scene of Singing in the Rain was improvised and added into the film later. Because Stanley thought it was such a fantastic idea.
That was a really good collaboration.
And this film was blamed for a rash of violence, right?
Yes, there was a bunch of hand-wringing and handkerchief dousing with tears over this film. Just like any other piece of art that challenges the namby-pamby white picket fence status quo, it's blamed for actual outbreaks of violence and gang activity and all of this shit in the UK. It was
funny. Wasn't the novel actually a commentary on that, though?
Yeah, for a series of alleged copycat break-ins and killings in the UK that happened around the time this was released. Some other dude would break into a house and rape a woman, and he must have done that because he saw Alex do it on A Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, because humans never did that kind of thing.
Yeah, the same
before.
criticism we hear in contemporary times about Grand Theft Auto or some shit.
Stanley himself received threats, and this movie really pushed him to be more of a recluse. He didn't start receiving actual credible threats until his next film, which is interesting because it's a way less controversial film in my opinion. But should we watch? Let's watch a little bit of the trailer of this. Maybe this is where we kind of have to be careful because they're going to be using music and shit.
So the Clockwork Orange trailer?
Well, after this. But I don't know. Let's try it, and we can mute it if you think it's going to be a problem.
Let's take a look real quick here.
I just get worried when we get into this era.
Let's see. I love how he preempts all of the critical commentary in the trailers to his films. Yeah, he's like,
gritty, sardonic,
I'm going to tell you what to think about this film.
Violent, gritty, passionate.
Yeah,
comics.
He's putting out his own adjectives about it. Like, I'm going to review the film for you in the trailer. I see what you mean about there being a certain uniformity to the trailers of these films, though. It does kind of seem like there's a lot of trailers that employ this like sort of stark black background with white words superimposed, and just trying to get you to formulate an opinion about what you're going to see before you've even seen it. That's what a good trailer should do.
A lot of the trailers always kind of, I think, try to leave you slightly uncomfortable. He really wants to like do something like
but titillated and interested.
Yeah, like the flashing lights, like flashing purple and fucking, and they just like these random vignette shots of like the characters in these various poses.
Another sad fact about censorship comes in his next movie, Barry Lyndon, which I hadn't watched in its totality until very recently. I saw it about 2 or 3 months ago. TJ, you've never seen it. I think it really is a shame. It is an absolutely beautiful film. And another boundary-pushing cinematic film that we'll talk about. I had you pull this picture because Stanley was committed to realism as he was in 2001: A Space Odyssey with Barry Lyndon. And in movies before this, if there was a candlelit scene, they would light a real candle and allow that natural light to cast on the actors. But off camera somewhere, there would be, a light with an orange gel on it. Stanley wanted to film in candlelight. And at the time, there really wasn't a whole lot of technology that would allow people to do that.
Right, and it's to this day. I mean, you can't. If you do any sort of video production shit, light is so important.
Well, let's say you see a scene of like Star Trek and they're in a cave. It's still gonna be a brightly lit cave. Like the low light, shooting in low light is very difficult. It's extremely difficult. That's what a camera captures is the light. It's essentially what the device it does. So it's more or less light that it lets in. But like you're saying, even the best technology at the time, this shot is almost like shouldn't even exist.
Right. While on the set of this film, he started to receive death threats. And the reason was because this film takes place partly in Ireland and shows military activity taking place in Ireland, and this hair-lipped the IRA. And they started threatening to...
Pretty serious threats. I mean, the IRA were, right. They were actually carrying out attacks.
And he lived in the United Kingdom, so he's right next to it. That's not a threat. They can get to him if they really want to.
And they said that they were going to break into Stanley's house and kill his family like Alex and his Droogs did in his previous film. Stanley was distraught by this and actually censored himself, asked the studio not to show this film until after his death in 1999. And it wasn't. This film was not publicly shown in the British Isles until that time because he was so afraid that the IRA was going to kill his family. So that's kind of a sad footnote in the history of the censorship of Stanley Kubrick, was that eventually he was pushed to censor himself with threats of actual violence. Other than that, I guess we could watch the trailer for this movie.
And by the way, Stanley Kubrick, starting to look like Stanley Kubrick by this point.
Yeah, this is the Kubrick that most people know and love. And by the time that he did this film, his demands on actors and production crew had become legend in the film industry. He was just an uncompromising, uncaring, hard-hearted driving force behind these films, and he required everybody to push themselves beyond their limits.
Barry Lyndon, a film by Stanley Kubrick, starring Ryan O'Neal and Marissa Berenson, has won the Best Picture and Best Director Award presented by the National Board of Review. Richard Schickel, in a Time magazine 7-page cover story, called the film ravishing, overwhelming, an uncompromised artistic vision, and said, director Stanley Kubrick asserts a claim to greatness that time alone can, and probably will, confirm. CBS TV critic Pat Collins called it a masterpiece, monumental, a perfect film of epic size. Playboy magazine's Bruce Williamson, a film classic. Rex Reed of the New York Daily News wrote, as an 18th century rake's progress, Barry Lyndon catalogs the rise and fall of a likable scoundrel, liar, cheat, and social climber, transporting the viewer into a world of long ago and creating the kind of magic few movies accomplish and few directors attempt in a lifetime. It is a magnificent entertainment, sumptuous, lush...
I thought he was going to grab her tit for a second.
A classic.
I think that was purposeful. Little Lord Bullington.
Lord Bullington!
Liz Smith of Cosmopolitan called it a perfect movie. Beautiful, breathtaking, brilliant.
This is not a good trailer.
It isn't. No. It portrays the film as mostly a military movie, and that might be why you have avoided it so long. There are some military battle scenes in it, but it is much more the... I really think this trailer should focus on what the movie is about, which is Barry Lyndon. This crazy, roguish character that moves around the film by guile and social climbability, and he's just a crazy fuck-up.
Yeah, I'm not impressed with, some narrator reading me reviews. The New York Times says. The trailer does not represent the film at all. It's just showing you scenes from the film. It's not a very good trailer. I mean, I know all trailers do that, but there's no narrative being demonstrated. It's not really giving you the message of what this film is about. Like, you watch the trailer for 2001, you watch a trailer for fucking Doctor Strangelove or Manzita. It's all in your face. It's about a very ambitious man from very little, that comes from very little, but has a lot of pride, and it's kind of seeking his fortune.
If you like Rise and Fall movies, like Rise to Power and Fall from Grace movies, this is one of the best I've ever seen.
It is. It's an underrated,
fantastic movie.
Kubrick classic, and the fact that it doesn't get the attention it deserves is honestly a shame.
In order to film the candlelight scenes, he pretty obsessively researched how to get that low light to transfer onto film in a meaningful way. He ended up purchasing some Zeiss lenses that are only now starting to become available for rent to people. He purchased them when they were first invented. They were being used by NASA for, shooting in orbit and shit, shooting the low light out in space. And he used those lenses, had to modify one of his own cameras, basically cut parts out of it to fit the lens. But he made it work.
So when he made this movie, he was fucking determined to make shooting by candlelight a thing. Go and watch the indoor scenes in that film. I recommend you watch the film, TJ, but even if you don't, I mean, you don't really see that in the film. You don't see that when they do an indoor scene that's only lit by candle. It's like Paul says, always, obviously, the room is lit externally. Because mostly modern lights. Most filmmakers would just say...
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, who gives a shit?
Right. As long as it looks that way.
But the atmosphere of this movie is perfect.
Yeah, it is. It's carefully... He wanted that room to look like it would have looked if you were there. See, candlelit rooms like that are plenty of light for the human eye to see. Not for a camera, though.
Right.
And he wanted that room to look exactly how it would have looked if it were lit by candles, as it would have been during the time of this filming.
Because he wants you to be completely immersed in the time and the place.
I mean, this movie is got beautiful costuming in it. I mean, everything is absolutely period in it. You're not going to find an element of it that's wrong. And
but it certainly doesn't have the reputation of Clockwork Orange, 2001, or Doctor Strangelove.
And a lot of that, I think, had to do with his self-censorship of the film. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a standout in his movies. It's kind of sandwiched between some
Clockwork Orange and The Shining. So.
Right. Some actually controversial films and some actually, and it's just kind of a quiet movie in his repertoire, but I think it's easily one of his best. He was offered, after this film, a few chances at making a horror movie. He was offered the directorial spot for The Exorcist 2, and he kind of wisely turned that down and decided that he was going to make his own horror movie in The Shining.
Great photo here.
I love this picture, man. It's so awesome to see him standing there at that set with that iconic shot, Rumors circulated during the production of this film of his crazy demands made upon actors and crew. We talked about this, I think, during our favorite horror movies thing, but I thought it bared mentioning again here. That Stephen King was pretty salty about this adaptation of the novel.
because Kubrick basically took the premise of the Stephen King book and then did his own thing with it. It was not really an adaptation of The Shining as much as it was, I'm going to use the setup of The Shining to do something that's completely different. I've never read The Shining, so I don't know what Stephen King's vision really was, or if it would have also made a good movie, but I do know that Stephen King did eventually try to make his own version for television.
I think Kubrick just probably viewed that as like...
Just awful.
He probably viewed that as like, this project, especially because like, he's not like collaborating with someone, it wasn't like him and Stephen King set out to make this film, it's like, Stanley Kubrick probably had his own vision for it. And I don't think, I'm not even sure, but I heard this, but I heard they didn't even actually read the novel. He's kind of like, he skimmed through it, like, okay, I'm making the Stanley Kubrick
it's kind of like who genuinely knows if he did or he didn't.
Yeah,
and I gotta be honest here, I think Stephen King gets a bum rap in this, because the artistic vision of Stanley Kubrick for the film adaptation of this was so superior to his work kind of got trampled on. I can see his perspective on this. Think about how Stanley would have felt if Stephen King had decided he was going to write a book about one of Stanley Kubrick, like 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
The book. You know what I mean? And then he changed all the principal characters around and changed the principal scenes in the film to fit his... He would have felt, I think, similarly to Stephen King. And this is two huge powerhouse artistic visions colliding.
Yes. And I mean, both legendary names. Obviously, Stephen King has had a lot more misfires than Kubrick, but at the same time, Stephen King is, he's stepped up to the plate quite a few more times than Kubrick ever did as well.
Absolutely. Let's watch the trailer for this.
It's a fucking masterpiece.
I don't suppose they told you anything in Denver about the tragedy we had up here during the winter of 1970? I heard a man named Charles Grady is the winter caretaker. From what I've been told, he seemed like a completely normal individual. But at some point during the winter, he must have suffered some kind of a complete mental breakdown. He ran amok and killed his family with an axe.
Well, you can rest assured, Mr. Ullman, that's not going to happen with me.
That's right.
Brilliant trailer.
It is.
Do you really want to go and live in that hotel for the winter? Sure I do. It'll be lots of fun.
The only thing that can get a bit trying up here during the winter is a tremendous sense of...
I also like how it's not trying to like just do this big twist on you. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's telling it what it is out in the open, but it's still making it interesting. It's so skillfully edited, and
in stark contrast to that previous trailer, which was just random scenes from the film with critical acclaim over it.
But that it's almost no narrative. It's like this film is good. That's basically this one. This one's like already in your mind starting to form like what this movie is about and what you can expect.
Yeah. I think much better at conveying the tone. Laden it is with subtext and strange little things in the shot that are, could be meaningless but could have deep detail that I never looked at. Films were just going to
He's brilliant. Yeah. Preeminently interpretable film with no clear interpretation. There's so many different ways.
If you think about the novel versus the movie, everyone remembers the movie.
I like to ask people that have seen this movie, do you have a personal theory for what the subtext is, why we see him in the photo at the end of the film?
My thoughts on why I think to me, it's kind of just about, like, the propensity of violence within human beings and just saying, like, maybe you think you've escaped that primal darkness within you, but you really haven't.
Yeah.
Like, when he's at the photo at the end, it's like, you've always been the caretaker here, as in, this guy who went crazy and ran amok that you think you're so separate from, you're not. That can just as easily be you. But, I mean, like, that's just one very basic interpretation out of
there's people that interpret the movie,
who think it's about the genocide of the Native Americans or the fucking the moon landing conspiracy, or there's just a billion fucking things you could bring into the fucking film. The Minotaur,
Yeah. I think this movie, more than many of his other films, is a sponge for what people want to see. It absorbs all your own personal shit. You know what I see when I watch
the
this
Overlook
movie?
Hotel too.
For me, this movie's about alcoholism because I grew up in an alcoholic household.
I've heard that one too. Yeah.
And I watch this movie as an examination of the hell of living with an alcoholic. Him being in the photo at the end of it, holding up a drink, is symbolic of the fact that alcohol has caused this kind of violence against one's own family throughout the generations. It's always a tragedy. That's what I see in the movie.
Yeah, I can
that's my personal bias in going in. If a movie's going to ask me to fill it up with myself, and it's going to be an examination of a parent and a child and a wife, and there's heavy drinking involved, I'm going to project that.
Maybe it's kind of the point of the film, because like the Overlook Hotel, I think that's what it's called, right?
It's almost like, to me,
it kind of shows you though. I mean, it kind of whoever's in it, it plays to them, and I think that
characters and little vignettes and moments. I think to me, it's almost like every generation. We're different. We're so much different. But humans really
the old nothing is ever over type of.
Well, it's like I've always viewed it as.
Sure, I can see that. I mean, I can see a lot of the theories that people try and paste onto this movie, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's one of his best remembered films. I mean, certainly the central performance of Jack Nicholson, you can't pass that over. I mean, this was a great collaboration between these two, and one that I kind of wish had multiple movies behind it. But Stanley was not known for having the same leading man.
Like you see with Kurosawa and Mifune or Burton and Depp.
And the next director, we're definitely going to see that trend. It's not that does not hold true for the next director.
Yeah,
I'll say that.
Kurosawa had guys that he liked to use over and over again. Well, I guess we just revealed.
or a film of any kind.
So he's really at this point waiting for something to get excited about, or I guess, or that he's either just
that he was really passionate about that never got made. And it was during this period of time between The Shining and Full Metal Jacket that, that movie kind of broke down and just he realized I'm not going to be able to make it. Full Metal Jacket is, once again, it's vies for the top spot for me in his films. And once again, it's like a great big sponge. Oh yeah, I pulled up this picture. Let's go back to The Shining real quick, because I pulled up this picture to show what some people say is a huge diss to Stephen King.
Yeah.
Stephen King's movie, or book, has Jack Torrance driving a red VW Beetle. In the film, his Beetle is yellow. And at the end of the movie, when the old man is driving up to the Overlook Hotel, we get a brief shot of this very obvious red VW Beetle crushed on the side of the road by a giant truck. A lot of people interpret this as Stanley's fuck you to Stephen King, like, this is my vision, and here's your vision on the side of the road, bitch. Crushed.
Well, I mean, you have to say that history kind of fell that way. I think that if you're talking about The Shining, the iconic version of The Shining that people remember is not the Stephen King book or his attempt at making it into a miniseries later on. It's the Stanley Kubrick vision. So it might be a fuck you to Stephen King, but it's a lingering, lasting, and very effectual fuck you.
I hope the Stanley Kubrick estate.
But it does say at least that Stanley Kubrick read the book, or at least some of it. So
or whoever has the rights to this film. One film I would absolutely fucking hate to see remade is this, and there's a strong trend in horror now to do that. So I hope that never happens.
Well, hopefully nobody's stupid.
I don't think any Stanley Kubrick film should be remade.
I don't think so either.
I don't think you should.
I'm in agreement with you.
I don't think you should remake Doctor Strangelove. I don't think you should remake 2001.
That's why I'm saying I just hope that never happens. I don't know who has the rights to it, but please let that never happen.
No one should ever do that. It just shouldn't be done. It's just a bad fucking idea. You're not gonna fucking do it better than Stanley Kubrick did it, so don't fucking do it.
So, 7 years after The Shining, Stanley returned to a well-worn trope in his movies, war. Once again, this time the Vietnam War.
Yeah, I don't have a
Full Metal
picture
Jacket.
of this, so
yeah, that's fine.
I'm just gonna. Should I just let me just start the trailer and maybe just freeze it so we can have a picture overlaying this. Let's take a little look at some of this trailer. Jesus, that is a loud.
It's a Loudon.
It's a Loudon. All right, so yeah, this should be good. Go ahead.
So, a lot of people remember this movie mostly for its first act, which takes place in basic training, where we meet all the kind of principal characters.
Another one I haven't seen, by the way. So
yeah, I don't know how you've gone so long and not seen this film. I know you have a distaste for war movies, but come on, TJ.
It's Stanley Kubrick, dude.
This is a Kubrick film.
Gomer Pyle, TJ, come on, dude.
And there's so many referential things that you're just not going to get, TJ. You're not going to get because you haven't seen this movie.
I haven't seen Beverly Hills Chihuahua 2 either.
Oh,
obviously, that's
definitely on the same
point. Just as influential.
Yeah.
Hey, have you honestly watched Beverly Hills Chihuahua 2? The cinematography is incredible.
Oh, I bet
so
it is.
I hear.
I bet it is. So it's a Vietnam War story. Another movie that invites you, I think, to pour your own feelings on that conflict and conflict in general onto it. The thing that connects me to this movie so strongly is Matthew Modine's character of Joker. Especially in these early films in the movie, looks exactly like my dad did when he was in the Army. All of his Army photos, he looks remarkably like Private Joker. There's a lot of interesting little tidbits I pulled about this movie, knowing TJ hadn't seen it. I guess Schwarzenegger was supposed to play a major role in the movie, Animal Mother.
I would have seen it if Schwarzenegger was in it.
Yeah. Adam Baldwin ended up doing that. Bruce Willis was offered a part in the movie before he was to start shooting the first 6 episodes of Moonlighting, so he had to say no. Denzel Washington wanted in, but didn't like that Kubrick didn't send out a script beforehand to audition. So a lot of people kind of tapped this movie as a possibility for being in it, but no real big names ended up in this movie. Matthew Modine was not a big name at this time. Really none of the people in this film were. England was the adopted home for Kubrick at this time, who claimed to have a fear of flying. A British territorial army base doubled as a Marine boot camp. So he shot this very American film entirely in Britain. To create the necessary jungle-like atmosphere of Vietnam, 200 palm trees were imported from Spain and plastic plants were shipped in from Hong Kong. Belgian Army colonel was such a big fan of Kubrick's that he lent him 4 M41 tanks to shoot with.
Whoa. What? Damn, dude.
Cool.
Yeah. Man, being Stanley Kubrick had his fucking perks. Can I still have 4 tanks? Yeah, all right, go ahead and take them.
And, a very, probably the most memorable role in this film, R. Lee Ermey's role here as the gunnery sergeant Hartman, to show you how committed Stanley was to his vision. Pretty early on in filming, R. Lee Ermey was in a car accident while not shooting and crushed all the ribs on the left side of his body, was out of commission for 6 months.
Ouch.
and Kubrick shut down filming, or refused to move forward and refused to recast the role. So he was very, very committed to this vision. And I can see why. R. Lee Ermey would not have been replaceable in this film, and as like I said, probably one of the most, if not
Probably
the most
only
memorable thing about
scenes
it.
I've really seen from this movie are his scenes, because I've just seen them in so many like compilation videos and stuff on YouTube.
To give you an example of the types of pressures he would put on actors and what he asked of them, Matthew Modine's wife was pregnant at the start of the filming of this movie, and when she went to the hospital to give birth, Stanley insisted that he told him, he said, "Look, I've had kids. You're just going to be in the way of the doctors. Just stay here and work." And Modine took out his pocket knife, threatened to cut his hand open in order to get permission to go to the hospital to get it stitched up, and I guess it worked. Kubrick let him go see his son be born.
I thought you were about to say he threatened to stab Kubrick.
No. Threatened to hurt himself bad enough that he'd have to go to the hospital to get stitched up so that he could also go see his son be born.
It's like, all
and
right.
that's the lengths that he had to go to get Kubrick to say, all right, go see your child.
Look, I've done this kid shit. You're just going to be in the way. Just stay here.
Dude, someone probably checkmated Stanley Kubrick. There you go. It's like, I'll just injure myself and have to go. And he's like, all right, fair enough.
All right, I guess you checkmated me this time. Whatever. He lost, a day's shooting? Who cares?
After this movie,
he didn't do shit.
He didn't do shit for a very long time, and it
had
was
a bunch of projects in development, but nothing really
development.
Nothing really came into fruition for him.
He had a movie named Blue in development, and a movie named Rhapsody, which was supposed to be a psychosexual, like drama film or something.
Right.
He combined both of those two projects into his final film, which was Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah. Eyes Wide Shut. With Tam.
Which we're not going to talk about because I really don't like Eyes Wide Shut. It's okay, and yeah, it exposes Hollywood elites. Yeah, that's what it's really about. But, like, I don't think it's a good movie. I just don't like it. I'm not going to lie.
You're a $3 billion.
Steven Spielberg! Orson! Alfred Hitchcock!
Picture a child sitting next to a projector, learning from your films to become a much better director. Now picture a $3 billion dream machine who can blockbust all over your crop just to see. Try to duel with me, Alfred, you must be psycho. I'll bring back Jaws to take a bite of your life, Bo. I'm always so on top of my game, I get the vertigo. My jet's in the terminal, waiting for me to murder you. I rock the Academy and the DGA. You rock as many Oscars as that slap Michael Bay. Time you're filling up those jowls with 3 steaks and souffle. Check the trade, see me amble to my next big play. I produce cartoons and make games for all ages. You produce Jimmy Stewart making one of 2 faces. Maybe next time I'm busy, you'll be a bit more gracious. I'll kiss my full moon and just bask in my greatness.
That was a close encounter of the third kind. But there won't be a pretty ending this time. Half your billions will go to John Williams. Now brace yourself as I reveal my brilliant master. All suspense so intense, no defense against Hitchcock once he presents. Muscular than enormous, orchestrate brilliant performance. You're more horrible than Megan Fox's acting and transform. Come on! Fish puppets and muppets to stir the fears up. I squeeze screams out of chocolate syrup. I'm the best mamma jammer ever stood behind a camera. Damage panderos and haunt you like the last Indiana.
Give me a Tylenol. Stop rhyming, y'all. Alfred, you got no style, dog. I'm the king of dialogue. There's only one movie I know you from. And I've seen more blood in the shower than a stomach tone. Tried to fight in World War I, but couldn't do that. The British Army wouldn't let you join because we're too fat. Look it up. It's a true fact. Wikipedia that. Now allow me to attack Stephen the Hack. Through the war, the world's a failure's what I label you. It looked like some sellout bullshit Michael Bay would do. Ask anybody.
What's your favorite Sam Jackson part?
No one's gonna say, what's his name from Jurassic? Scripts that I write ain't the clean. When I grip mics, I'm the mean. Quentin Tarantino is a genius. A bad motherfucker from the wallet to the penis.
there's no reason to use it. Unless you're talking about the Kubrick, then there's really nothing to it. Everything I do is visionary. Every single frame of painting made exactly how I wanna make it. Do another take and get it right 127 times. Make you learn to love me. I'm the bomb. Troubles are violent, rhyme like clockwork. Make you all hurt. Beat Spielberg, the color purple. AI is the worst beast, the potential fix the Ninja Turtles.
That's enough. I've heard enough crap from all of you. When I come down there and show you what a real star can do, I will blow with the telephoto. No Bruckheimer, I work solo. There's one thing I've learned, bitch. This game is about motherfucking money. I make that dollar, y'all. Motherfucking money. You make Mark Wahlberg make some motherfucking money. Shot and got a few drops and I got milk money. Rose to the rock, now I got that socks made of silk money. I ain't got that guilt money. I don't give a fuck. Take my checks to the bank and I sign them with my love. Give the people what they love. My critics say I'm evil. Got no time to read reviews while I'm working on the sequel. Got a gift from above. The eyes of an eagle. When it comes to blowing up, no director is my equal. Hold on. Kubrick one.
Anyway, Jennifer's Solution. Honestly, Tarantino had the best bars in that song.
What makes the case of Jennifer Pan unique among others in the true crime genre is the overabundance of raw footage freely available in the public domain. There is over 11 hours of material that not only recounts her entire life in meticulous...
Just kidding. We've been live for enough today. Let's go to bed. We'll watch this tomorrow. We're not going to bed yet. We're just ending stream. It's basically the same thing as going to bed. Bye-bye!